Andy Choi with Verizon. I want to welcome all of you to our small business webinar series, where every webinar we bring in industry experts to offer insight, advice, strategies, and ways to make your small business thrive during some of these challenging times. Our host today is Mr. Ramon Ray. It's always a pleasure to have Ramon. He's an entrepreneur, an author, and speaker, and the founder of Smart Hustle Media. Joining Ramon today, our guest is Mr. Carl Gould. He's the founder of 7 Stage Advisors, which provides business mentorship to companies worldwide. Carl is also an author. He's got a best-selling book out, The 7 Stages of Small Business Success. He's here today to share how your small business can create long-term success and build brand loyalty with your customers. Should be a fantastic conversation. So, without further ado, let's send it over to Carl and Ramon.
Thank you so much. Good to be here again. Good to serve the Verizon small business community. And I'm excited to be here with my friend, best-selling author, keynote speaker, business strategist, Carl Gould. Again, Carl, welcome, and we're glad to have you with us. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm so good. Ramon, thanks so much for having me, and thanks to the community for letting me be part of your day.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it, Carl. Listen, you advise, zillions of small business owners and mid-sized companies all over the place. I know you have your book out, The 7 Stages of Small Business Success. And so let's talk about briefly, I want to get into this aspect of the bold promise. I'm not sure, Carl, whether to be worried or excited about it. We'll see about the bold promise, but I do want to give you time to mention these 7 stages and why it's so important to us. So before you do that, Carl, just to remind people of a few things. As you're looking at this live event, 2 things I want you to know. 1, you can look at the attachments tab right below you in the attachment tab, any resources and things that Carl has. In particular, I think he's going to share some slides with us. That will be there. And then 2, we want you to rate this. It's important to Verizon to know how we're doing if we're serving your needs. So please use the rate this tab to rate how we're doing, what you like, what you don't like, to give us feedback. So Carl, with that, why don't you walk us through these 7 stages of small business success and why each one is so important?
Sure. So what we've learned over the years, Ramon, is that there are 7 very distinct developmental stages that a growing business goes through, and you can't skip a stage. They have to go in sequence. And we have found when you get out of sequence, meaning if you're doing the right things but at the wrong time or in the wrong sequence, you oftentimes will not get the result that you want. So there are these 7 distinct stages that we have researched in successful companies over the last 30 years. And they go like this. Stage 1 is what we call the strategic planning stage. It's when you get all those great ideas out of your head and onto paper. Stage 2 is what we call the expert stage. I see you smile, like get all those great ideas out, right? Stage 2 is when an expert is born, okay? The specialty stage. And that's where you establish yourself as an expert in your niche and you exert that authority. Stage 3 is what we call the synergy stage. And the synergy stage is when you start building your implementation team. Stage 4 is the systems stage. And that's when you start to automate, codify, document all aspects of your business, and you start growing. You start going from a growing business to a scalable business. Okay? Stage 5 is what we call sustainability. And sustainability is where the systems have taken over and you are now ready for scale. You can expand your locations, your products, you can license, you can franchise. It's a huge scaling stage. Stage 6 is what we call the saleability stage. And that's when you build your management team and you make your business very credit-worthy and investor-friendly. And then stage 7 is what we call the succession stage. And the succession stage is you're building a legacy business and it's firing all cylinders and you get to fire employee number 1. That's right, that's you, and you place a CEO in your place.
I think it's powerful. And as you all are listening, I'm curious, Carl, let's have a little bit of fun. In the chat, could you please put what stage you're in? You can use numbers. I'd be curious just to know what the Verizon small business audience is like, or put the stage in: strategic, specialty, synergy, systems, sustainability, saleability, or succession. I think for me, Carl, personally, Smart Hustle, I believe we're kind of out of 3, we're in 4. I wish I could say we were into 5, but I think we're about at 4-ish in our business, because there's some things we need to grow. Sure. And I'm curious, Carl, would you say, clearly no one wants to stay at 1, but as you're looking at stage 5, 6, 7, is it okay to decide you want to stay at 5 or 4, or in your experience, everybody has to grow to 7? Can you help us understand that?
Great question, because once you get from 4 through 7, there's no difference. As a matter of fact, Apple's a stage 4 company. Virgin, Starbucks, stage 5. Uber, Amazon, stage 6. Microsoft, stage 7. Apple's bigger than Microsoft, but they're a stage 4 company. It's more the type of company you are, so Apple's the closed ecosystem, so that's stage 4. Or Microsoft is an open licensing platform, so that's more stage 7.
Got it. That is powerful. That is powerful. And I think that's important. I think that to remind everybody, those of you who are looking to go through these stages, you really want to think and take the time to know, where am I at? And I think, where am I going? And don't forget to go back to the archives in the Verizon Small Business Webinar Series. We've had talks like this with some other amazing speakers. Carl, I really want to get to the juiciest part of what we're talking about today. And that's this thing, this item, this thought about this bold promise. Let's dive into that bit. Feel free to take 1 or 2 minutes, Carl, to unpack what this means. And while you're listening, everybody remember, in the chat, please put in your questions, put in your comments for Carl. In about 17 minutes, give or take, we're going to get to your questions. If you're listening to this, please tweet out as well. Tag Ramon Ray, tag Carl Gould, tag Verizon Business. So Carl, let's unpack this bold promise, man. What does this mean? And especially, how does it relate to these 7 steps?
Sure. So a question I get very frequently, so feel free to put it in, is, Carl, how do I price my bold promise? All right. So we'll deal with that one. That one's coming, Ramon. So I thought I'd throw it in there. Okay. So in stage 2, that's the specialty stage. That's where you become known as an authority in your niche. Okay. You're known as the smartest tool in the shed. You're the person who's the go-to resource. Now, if you think about it for a moment, how do we know who's an expert? How do we judge that? Well, interestingly enough, if you were to go to a shopping mall when they're all reopened again, and you were to ask consumers as they're going in and out, what are you looking for today? Are you looking for the highest priced products and services, or the highest quality products and services? And most people would say highest quality. And you would say, all right, how do you judge quality? And they'll say, well, price, of course. If it's expensive, it must be good. Or if it's almost free, it must be good. If it's priced at the top or the bottom of the niche, boy, that must be good. So pricing is one of the top ways that you'll communicate with your clientele. And so that's a big part of stage 2. So in stage 2, you need to have a bold price, but also a bold promise. And here's why. Because consumers want typically what they don't feel they can have. And the two things are, in tough economic times and crazy times that we're in today, is perceived control and a bold promise. So the old promise is no longer good. Pre 9/11, post 9/11, 2 different worlds. Pre and post COVID, pre and post crisis, 2 different worlds. And so we want to be aware of that and understand that your promise to your customers has to be top of mind. And the way that you do that is, one of the initial ways that we do that is we say, take the top 5 complaints about your industry. Maybe not about you personally, but about your industry. Well, what is it like dealing with a magazine company like that, a telecom company, a manufacturer, an auto dealer, a barber, a florist, whatever your business is? What are the top 5 complaints that your buyers have about businesses like yours? Those are likely your top of mind. And if you can solve anywhere from 1 to 5 of those issues, you have a very bold promise. The more of the 5 you can solve, the more bold the promise. It's how Netflix took out Blockbuster. No late fees, don't have to go to the store. We never run out of titles. And if you don't get what you asked for, we'll give you your money back.
And Carl,
unheard of.
Hold on that 1 second. Let's just review that just to help people unpack this. And I don't want you to lose your train of thought. But using Netflix and Blockbuster as an example, because we all know the story. For those who are too young, Blockbuster was this little thing that looked like 7-Eleven. You could walk in and get videotapes and put them in a little box in your home. For those who don't know what Blockbuster is. But so was that the nutshell of it? Would you say, Carl, because Blockbuster didn't keep asking what are the pains and are we solving them, they got a little comfortable maybe and thought, no, people want to go to the store. Come to the retail store. At one point it was true, but it shifted. Is that a fair how we should do for our business constantly?
Correct. And the modern day mall is asking the same question. Remember when we were kids, when malls were really getting popular, the novelty of just going to a place where thousands of people were shopping at the same time, that was incredibly exciting. But you know what? We're used to that now. Yeah. That's no longer a compelling reason to just go to the mall. So we need a better experience now. So a bold promise is something that addresses what are the needs right now. So for example, the new normal, as we keep hearing about it, is that there's going to be different rules for offices. When can you come in, sanitizing, distancing, who's allowed in and when. So a bold promise for a small business would say, well, normally I would deliver my products or services between 9 and 5. Well, I have an option now where I'll come 5 to 9. I'll be there so at a time when I'm not interacting with your office personnel because you don't want me to. So I'll come in nights and weekends. That's bold. You know, how do I pull that off? What are the logistics? It's a different animal overall. So another, bold promise would be, if you buy the express pass, you won't wait in line at all. Right? Because the top complaint is, I love your facility. I love coming to you, but I wait in line forever. Is there anything we can do about that? Certainly. There's a product for that. And so over and over and over again, you see innovative companies that address what the top complaints are. Zappos, for example, sells and distributes shoes online, apparel and clothing. And the big problem was, I don't want to try on clothes at my house. One, they might not fit, and two, it's such a hassle to return them.
That's right.
Well, they solve those two problems. I'll only bill you for what you keep, and I'll say, if you're unsure about 2 or 3 options, I'll send them all to you. You're just going to pay for what you hang on to. What? Really? Awesome. And they changed the paradigm. You see what I mean?
I love it. I love it. This is powerful. I love it. So this is the promise side. This is the promise side we're on. And now what about pricing, Carl? How does that fit in? Because I want to make these promises, but can I still be, 99 cents or whatever it is, the cheaper or free, or do I have to now do something that's too expensive, alluding to kind of how we do it offline?
Well, you want to go in one of 2 directions. And for most small businesses, one direction is more realistic than the other. But those that are considered to be the experts in the niche or have a bold promise are either priced among the highest or among the lowest.
Okay.
So, Google gives us the world's library for free, millions of answers to any question we have within 1 second, and they do it all for free. How are they able to do that? Well, they have the algorithm. They have a business model that allows for that. So it's bold. So we think, wow, Google must be the expert, right? But at the same time, if as a small business, it's hard for us to play that level because it's such a volume game. It's not likely a realistic business model. However, you can be among the largest, highest priced in your niche, because you can provide premium services and you can really leverage your features, advantages, benefits in some of the ways that you're much more agile than a larger company can be. In other words, you can pivot quicker.
Yes.
You can get there, you can drop on a dime, you can turn around. As a small business, it's such an advantage. We want to take advantage of it. So here's how you price it. Fasten your seatbelts, everybody.
Okay. I'm ready, Carl. I am. Okay.
Right.
Everybody.
Here we go.
Listen,
Here we go. You thought 5G was fast. Here it comes. All right. So so here's what you're going to do. What I want you to do, everyone, is write down what you normally charge for your core product or your core service. Okay. If there's an average price, write down that price. If you charge a commission, write down the commission. If it's an hourly rate, program rate, write that down. Then I want you to cross that number out and double it. Breathe, Ramon, breathe. Breathe.
Okay.
Because we're not done. We're not done. Exhale. All right. Now, take that price, cross it out again, and double it again. So 100 is 200. 200 is now 400.
Okay.
Now imagine going to your prospects and saying, hey, I'm so sorry we couldn't work it out at 100. Good news, it's now 400. How many of those do you think you would sell, right? You'd scare the bejesus out of your prospects. Yeah. And so I'm going to give you the company who actually did this worldwide, by the way, in just a moment. But you take your price, double it and double it again. And now if you were to ask yourself, how many of these would I sell? You're probably saying to yourself, not many or none at all. It's not because it's more expensive. It's because you haven't made the value proposition yet. The promise hasn't been bold enough to match the price. Yeah. If you think about it, you think about a luxury anything, a Rolex, a Patek Philippe, front row at orchestra seats at the Broadway play, 50-yard line at a football game, you name it. Who in their right mind would spend all that extra money for that? And yet the people who buy that say, that was a great value.
Yes.
That experience was worth every penny. How many people do you know have bought a luxury anything and then complained about the price?
Yeah.
Or did they brag about the price?
That's right.
Right? They brag about it usually. You have any idea? Oh, it's so worth it. Yeah, buy that pass so you don't stand in line. I know it's more, but definitely go for it. Right? And so what we want to do is we want to double again, and then here's your assignment. Take those 5 complaints,
Okay.
and take the value-added services that you already give away for free to your clients because they ask for them. You don't have any way to charge, or you're afraid to charge for it, so you just do it for free. And you stack complaints, value-added services, and the more you can line up, and the closer you can get to that double and double again, your price is going to stop at the point that the upside bonuses justify the increase.
And is this, Carl, part of this obnoxious offer, just to refer people going back to, as you're looking for these points, Carl has this slides. I encourage you, look at the attachments. You look about slide 3 or 4, and they may, Verizon team may be displaying it as we're speaking here, but you can see this part of the obnoxious offer. This, Carl, as I'm hearing you say this, man, I think this is the key, because as I talk to small business owners as well, Carl, I hear people, trying to raise their price, but then they don't do what you just said, which I think, Carl, you correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert in this, it's a bit of work. You can't just raise your price and just say, okay, we'll offer this. You have to think a bit about this. You said pain points. So I think both of these are important people to remember as you seek to raise your price and offer, what is it? Obnoxious price and obnoxious offer. Yes?
Correct. Absolutely. So yes, the slide on the obnoxious offer will show you how to build it. And if you even want to do levels, it'll show you how to do the levels. And also though, you're right. As soon as you raise your price, you do a few things. Right? But what the main thing you do is you start to attract those passionate about your product or service. They know the difference. If you make I was a big Superman comic book reader when I was a kid. I loved it. I had this 600-page book I used to read through over and over again. I love Superman. But if you threw a fake Superman at me, I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, come on. I know the real Superman. So you're going to attract the real passionate people that not only value what you do, they know the difference between good and not so good. So yes, you are making, so when we use the word obnoxious as a tongue-in-cheek thing because of an experience I had early in my career, but the reality is that an obnoxious offer is probably, you are redefining the client and provider relationship, and you are taking it to a level none of your other competitors can match. You are standing above in your niche. As a matter of fact, what we say about the obnoxious offer or the bold promise is, make the offer no one else in your niche has the guts to make. Because when you do the 5 complaints, Ramon, everyone knows what they are. There's no secret. All right, we're all paying late fees when we rent a movie. I don't want to pay late fees. Just who has the guts to make an offer that you won't pay late fees? And if you could pull it off, people are going to come running to you. It is the cheapest, easiest way any small business can level the playing field and eliminate their competitors is through a bold promise. And it just so happens it makes your business sustainable during this time, because during the time of economic or societal uncertainty, buyers go towards experts. Experts, it's thought, can make a bold promise because, well, they must be good. They must know how to do that. So the bold promise comes with it the implicit understanding that you are an expert.
Wow.
So it does a couple of things at once.
And it seems also, Carl, like this is a great marketing hook as well. We've had a lot of marketing information in the Verizon Small Business Webinar Series. So it seems for me, this gives you that excuse, that ability to make even part of your marketing. I'm curious, Carl, and let's see, ladies and gentlemen, if Carl can answer this tough question I'm going to throw at him right now. And while you're listening, everybody, remember in the chat, feel free to put your questions, comments to Carl. You're hearing something you like, let us know. Tweet this out at Carl Gould, at Ramon Ray, at Verizon Business. Thank Verizon Business for bringing us here, because this pricing, I think it can change. Some of you listening are hurting. And I think hearing what Carl's saying today can really help. So Carl, what do you say to people, Carl, the aspect of I went to my customer, Carl, I did everything Carl said. I bought his book, The 7 Stages of Small Business Success, went to Carl's website, dived all in. And then Carl, my customer said, sorry, we don't have the money. We're going to go to low price Joe down the corner, Carl. What happens?
Well, so there's one place you can go first before you decide if you want to let them go to low price Joe. Okay. So the first thing you can do is we are very adamant about being firm in your pricing.
Okay.
You don't sacrifice your pricing. However, part of your bold promise can be flexible terms and conditions. Do you do in-house financing? Do you accept credit cards? Do you discounts for cash?
Mhm.
Do you have a barter service? Do you all out there have an account with a barter bank where you can exchange services at a premium without exchanging any dollars? All right. So make your payment terms and conditions flexible. Okay. Now, if that person doesn't want to pay your price
Sure.
or follow your terms, they are not your customer. All right. And they don't value what you do. You'll never make them happy. And believe me, as a person who's a business owner, I never want to say no to anyone who's willing that wants to do business with me. Right. But your bold promise, here's the thing, Ramon, what will likely happen before it ever gets to that point is, because of your bold promise and your price, it's a big qualifier. Right? So tire kickers are not test driving a Rolex. They might go in and look at them like, well, that's really nice. But the moment it's time to buy them, you know who the Rolex buyers are, and you know who aren't the Rolex buyers. And vice versa. So people will tend to select and deselect themselves based on the parameters. So the real discipline is with the business owner, saying, here are the type of people I want to work with. Here are the terms and conditions under which I'll work. Be as flexible as you can with the terms and conditions, but when it comes to your price, the price is the ultimate qualifier. And you might decide that it doesn't have to be high. Maybe you went low. That's okay. You can go low, but you just have to honor thy pricing. All right? Be flexible, but honor thy pricing, because that means you're honoring thy promise.
Yeah. And I think one example that I'm hearing you say to underline this so we all understand it, and we're going to get to your questions soon in about 2 more minutes. I want to, Carl, give you time to talk about this up, down, sideways before you and I finish this discussion. But what I'm hearing you say, Carl, if you look at a Walmart and a Tiffany's, I'm making it up, some high-end shop, is that there's no bad way here. That if you make a decision, you're going to be the lowest price and so on and so forth. Great. If I'm wrong, tell me, Carl. And if
you're right on.
We're going to be premium. Great. You're just saying choose and then build the things around it, whichever type of customer you decide to go after. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's right. I mean, Sam Walton, when he went for his loan, said to a loan officer, here's my idea. I want to build a mega supermarket out in rural areas, in lower income areas where there's less population. I mean, it sounded like the craziest business model, and people, banks turned him down over and over again. But Sam Walton, when he passed away, was the richest man in the world. And if you look at the richest people in the world, his six family members who inherited the Walton fortune are in the top 20. So you guys, if just find out who you love serving and serve that person. There is the Tiffany's customer. There's the Walmart customer. One's not better than the other. You just have to address what the top 5 is for each one of them, right? So just pick your path and then serve them impeccably. Now, bold promises come in a few different formats. So in volatile times especially, and we're likely to be in volatile times for the next 5 years. If you look at the cyclical nature of our business and society, this is not a 2-month or 3-month thing. And that's good because it weeds out weaker companies or those that aren't on this webcast.
That's right.
Learning more and improving and consuming and taking it to the next level. But so the market, so 3 things happen at the same time. The market, the stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, okay? Consumer confidence and buying preferences all kind of track the same way. If the market goes up, buyer preferences go with it, consumer confidence goes up, and people will exchange their money for convenience. So you want to have a premium offering, okay? Think like a restaurant for a second. A menu for every appetite and for every budget. That's what you want to be as a business right now. So on the way up, we want to trade our money for convenience. That's a premium offering. Okay. If the market's going sideways, meaning Dow is up, Dow is down, Dow is up, Dow is down, Dow, right? That buyers get paralyzed. And the way that you get them to consider a purchase is you have to offer something free or risk-free, right? You watch late night TV, you can have this delivered to your home for $195, and if after 30 days you haven't turned it back, then we'll charge your card.
You do that pretty good, Carl.
I do private parties as well, Ramon. And so, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Wait, there's more. And so, but what they're doing there is they're giving you an opportunity to experience the result of that product or service before making a full commitment. Very, very important. And then when the market's going down, it's thought of as irresponsible to pay retail for an individual product. So when the market is going down, people tend to go more towards clubs, subscription-based services, memberships. Okay, I'm going to buy that pizza from the place that gives me 9 punch holes, and the 10th one I get a free pizza. All right, and so you want to have a bold promise, but have 3 versions of it. Here's my upward moving bold promise. Here's my sideways bold promise. Here's my down market bold promise. And by doing that, you're like a restaurant. Restaurants close 99.9% of the people that walk through the door, and they don't care what you buy off the menu, as long as you buy something.
Right.
So if you do the same thing, you not only have a bold promise, but you have a bold promise now that's sustainable because it addresses every direction of the market.
Wow. Carl, that is a gem, man, and I encourage everybody to go to the attachments tab. You can look at Carl's slide. It's a gem of information in itself. Carl, are you ready to take some questions from the Verizon Small Business Series community?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Ramon.
Let's do it. Here we go. Hey, Carl, we get a variety of questions at the Verizon Small Business Webinar Series. And question number 1, thanks again for those who are asking, those who are chatting and put it again in. We appreciate it again, Carl. We got a lot of good response from those who are asking about or chatting about their business stages. So question 1, Carl, is really about there's a person who's older, guy or gal, not sure. They're about 69 or so years old, and they're kind of restarting. They're starting getting back into the business world. So I guess the question, Carl, any advice from you for all the things we said in your overall business experience from a senior person, bit older, they're getting back in the game? Thoughts, tips, advice?
I'll have you note that Ramon is calling you old, Mr. or Ms. 69. I saw that question. That's 69 years young, Ramon.
Indeed.
Right. So if you're starting over, you don't have a budget issue, you have a pricing issue. So let's talk about that for a moment. Imagine Richard Branson or Oprah Winfrey said, I'm looking to start a business, maybe a mentoring company. I'm thinking of getting started. How do you think they would launch? They would launch by saying, I'm looking for a specific type of person who really wants to work hard, and I'll give them everything I got. Whatever your business is, number 1, we do not discount our way to market share. In other words, if you've been, one of my colleagues said one time, the gray hairs and the no hairs have an advantage. Okay, and that means you have something no one else can buy: wisdom and experience. You fought the battles, won the wars, and you have what nobody can buy, which is you've been through all the downturns over the last 49 years or so. So I'm 54 years young. I've been through a few myself. You've been through a few more than I have. Your knowledge right now is invaluable. So what I would make sure to do, just like we talked about before, is have a premium offering. Now, what I'd like you to do is go to my website, carlgould.com, and on there's a page called A Day with Carl. And you'll read down and I'll say, I'll spend the entire day with you. You know what that day is worth? $20,000. So Mr. or Ms. 69, here's what I want you to do as well. Whatever your business is, on your website, put A Day with a Sage, or whatever your name is, and explain all the things you've done in your career, how you'll spend the entire day with them, and you're going to charge $15,000 for that. $15,000? What? Exactly. What? You're going to try. What? Right? Hey, at my advanced age, Ramon, I don't get the screens as well. But you're gonna do that because you're gonna set the brand quality. Okay. What you want to do is exert yourself out there right away. Remember, this is about the bold promise. So a day with you is a full-on day that you're going to spend time with, and you're going to work with them on any aspect of their life or business that you feel that you can give some sage advice for. Read through the page, that page I set up there, copy it, or as we would say, sparrow it. Sparrow it, put at least $15,000 down for the day. That sets your brand quality, and that's your personal page, and then have your business page. And that will help you put a little pricing elasticity into your marketing. And the second thing I would do is I would start calling around, talking it up on social media, attending networking event, events and start telling people about your upcoming business and what you're about to do. And if you were going to start with a cohort, a founding charter member group, would they like to begin it? In other words, this is old school Kickstarter, right? This is baby boomer Kickstarter, when we would spread the word and we would sell it before we built it. In a past life, I had 2 construction companies, and one of them I used to build residential homes. So I would buy a piece of land and I'd put a trailer there and with a model home, and you'd come in and you would buy off the plan. So let me tell you the plan. Let me get people excited, and then you're going to have a charter member or initial cohort or founding member group that's going to buy your service at a premium.
Well, Carl, I love it. What a powerful, powerful example. And I love the stories you're creating in our mind as we follow this example. Another question here, an education consultant. And Carl, like many people, half the world probably or more, they used to consult in person, on site at schools. Now, Carl, as you know, that's gone. So what's your advice for them in the education market, if you have insight on that? But as you answer in general, for those and the many people, they used to go on site, Carl, now they're not. What are your thoughts? What have you been telling your clients?
Right. So first thing, get used in our virtual world, get used to the number 12. The number 12. Okay. So the number 12 is the level of energy you bring when staring at this laptop camera. Okay. In other words, for you to create a level 10 experience for whomever is consuming your content, be it students, be it other teachers, be it other people that are going through certification or training programs, in order for them to have a level 10 experience, you've got to be at a level 12. In other words, you have to feel as though that they are in the room with you. That's number 1. Number 2, it still has to be interactive, okay? And number 3 is you have to offer them something beyond just the stare at my screen experience. Polling, questions, interviews, other guests, And so now you can build a library, and even if you're live and in person, or you were phone-based or home study course, it's, this is where multimedia came in, is that you need multiple methods of consumption. Now, as we've gone, on digital, live in-person events, remember what we said during the presentation, people want what they can't have. All of a sudden, your in-person events are going to become much more exclusive, because depending on where you are in the country or the world, you're going to have capacity requirements. You're going to have distancing requirements. So putting 10 people in the room, boy, that better be a good 10 people. Right. And so we want to have a mix. So if the majority of what you do is online and digital, let's mix it in with live events. I think in 2021, you're going to find live in-person events to be an actual premium. And so when you can start to bring together people that are like-minded. So in the beginning, when you start an online or digital education experience, you're likely going to gather everyone that you can. Verizon has put together the small business webinar series. All right. Maybe in the future, we break off into a breakout room, and it's, professional services, manufacturing, logistics. And maybe we're going to get into mastermind groups, and maybe we're going to get more in-depth mentoring. This is a little bit of coaching and training today, but maybe we'll get into mentoring. Maybe we'll get into certifications, and we're going to build out a university, academy, boot camp, institute, college, school, online. So it's not about the method of delivery, because people are pretty used to that. But what it will be more about is the content you bring and teaching them the how. A lot of these things can be about the what, like here's what you ought to do, stay persistent. Bye guys. But here's how you stay persistent. Here's how you do a bold offering.
I love that, Carl. And again, to remind people, some people have dialed in late. That's okay. And come on just now. Remember, many of the things Carl's talking about, he has an amazing a PDF and a resource that he's generously offered to the Verizon small business community. That's in the attachment tabs, should be right below this screen. And please rate us. Verizon wants to know, how are we doing? How are we serving your needs? Is this useful to you? So please use that rating tab and do that. And also, I encourage you to tweet Carl Gould on Twitter, Ramon Ray on Twitter, and Verizon Business. I'd love to see a tweet. And the first person who tweets, I may just send you a copy of my or Carl's book. So, Carl, let's move on here. We have somebody, Carl, who says, listen, Carl, Ramon, I'm a B2B small business person, but I'm the smallest, Carl, in my industry. I'm surrounded by giants. Does Carl's pricing strategy really work? And in general, how do I compete against these big guys and gals?
This is how you take them out. I love the fact that you say you're small, because that means you're the most agile. That means you're the most customized, and you have certain advantages larger companies simply don't have. Now, they have some other things you don't have, like they could take on capacity, maybe larger jobs. But the way you can customize the experience is your true currency, right? Meaning that's your competitive advantage. You can go in there and do things others simply can't do because you can turn on a dime, and that customization has a value. Right? Think about the last time you went into any restaurant, you went into any store, and you got the standard experience. Hi, I'd like to buy that. Oh, just get in line with everyone else. Yeah, but I'm kind of in a rush. Yeah, well, that's fine. Well, then you're going to be in a rush online because that's where everyone goes. Rather, you're a small boutique experience and you say, oh, you're in a rush? I'm going to take you personally. What is it you need? Who are we buying for? Let me give you the benefit of my expertise right now. Oh, guys, that's gold. Yeah. Don't minimize. Don't think bigger is better, smaller. All right, because look, malls in the next 5 to 10 years, the Mall Association is telling us that these big malls, 25 to 40% of them are going to fail in the next 5 to 10 years. And they're saying that. And you know what they're going back to? The high street experience, the small boutique shopping experience. And as long as exactly, think custom. And that's how you compete. That's how you beat your competitors.
Wow, I love it. So I think it's a reframing of the mind, Carl. Many times as smaller businesses, understandably, we quake in fear when the big box retailer proverbially comes into our backyard. But I'm hearing you say there's hope, and we're acknowledging they have some resources we don't have, but it's how you think. Carl, another great question here, Carl. This is kind of like what I call in these Verizon Small Business Webinar Series, a political question, as it were.
Oh, bring it on.
And here's one, Carl. The hospitality business, Carl, is at a standstill. Staffing agencies and et cetera, they're just not hiring. So this person's asking, is at a standstill for staffing agencies. They own a staffing agency. In your best guess, Carl, would you hold on? Would you wait? Would you try to, wait and see how we can get back into business? Or if they're asking, would you just pivot to another industry? What's your guidance on that? How do you know when to wait and stay where you're going, or just to say, you know what, let's close up and just start a new course?
Right. So it's a question that 30% of our economy is faced with right now, because that's the service economy, what they call the social economy, where we interact and that's going to be a tougher road back. Well, what I'd like to do is peel back the onion a little bit and talk about what your core competency is. All right. What you call yourself is a staffing agency to the hospitality industry. But let's peel it back to what is the core of what you do. You bring people to people who need people. I'll do that again. We bring people to people who need people.
Yes.
Right? So your core is understanding what your clients need and bringing people that are willing to do temporary or permanent, project or service work. And so it's not when you bring your people back, it's how you bring them back. So in other words, I would start offering teams, in-office teams, like we're going to come in and run the back of the house for you. I'm not going to just send you one person. I'll send you the staff you need to handle this. You're going to start that pop-up store, will be your staff. All right. So I would go to the people I normally place. You might be temp to perm, you might be project based, right? There's a number of ways you can go, but I would go to your roster of talent and say, here's what I want to do, folks. I want to be a little flexible with who we go to, what other industries could we service, and what are we good at? We're good at getting on the site, learning very quickly, handling projects or events, right? And what else could we do? So I would do that first before I before I made a major exit, because what you're going to find is the answer you're going to get from that exercise is likely what your post-COVID world is going to look like. Okay, so live events are going to come back. So you're thinking just hospitality, doesn't have to be just that. You can manage other things besides what your core business is. So I would be looking at that. I'd be looking at those other options.
I think it's powerful, Carl. And what I'm hearing you say also underlining as well is that I think just to repeat this aspect of going backwards, what is your core? What are you doing? And I think that
Yeah.
I like that. I can't repeat that again. You're giving people to people who need people. That's powerful. And I think oftentimes, so let me ask you a little tougher question, Carl. Is there a time, and we're just riffing here, making it up as it were, but to help people understand, is there a time, Carl, where you would tell somebody, you know what, Jenny, you know what, Bob, you know, Ramon, I think, yeah, you should fold it up, quit your business, do something else, look for another opportunity. Is there a time when you'd come to that and say, fold the cards?
There is a time when you find out there is simply no way for you to bring your product to market on a consistent basis and profitably. It's time to go. So for that one, I have one more thought for that last question. Is the other thing that when we advise staffing agencies, here's one of the things we tell them. We tell them, you know, who the worst person to know what the client needs as far as staffing is? The client. They're not experts at HR, but you as a staffing person, you are. You are an expert, and you've seen all the horror stories of the wrong hire, the wrong time hire, and all that. So another area that you can go into is we've advised our staffing clients to go into consulting as well. I bet you, if you're like a lot of our staffing clients, you get the call from the decision maker or the owner saying, I think I need this. I think. And when you probe a little bit, you find out that you actually help them figure out what they need. So I would offer some consulting as well, some staffing and organizational development consulting before I made a major pivot as well, because I suspect your consulting is valuable.
Yeah, I love this. And again, we have a few more minutes to go, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, we've worked with Verizon for all of our amazing, amazing speakers and asked them if they wouldn't mind answering some more questions if we run out of time via Twitter. So feel free. Carl's a generous guy. I can see by his smile the answer is yes. Just tweet at him at Carl Gould. Ask your question. He'll do his best. He'll do his best to answer as many questions as he can. And I'm making that same offer. Just tweet at me. Hey, Ramon, I was on the Verizon Small Business Webinar Series. You didn't quite get to my question. It's really important. Tweet to me at Ramon Ray, and we'll do our best to answer your question. So, Carl, one or two more questions. Sure, a few more than one or two. We'll get to it.
As many as you want.
Is that this is a complicated question, but I think the basics of it is, Carl, and if you can see it there, is the aspect of income inequality. The question is the person saying, listen, shouldn't I lower my prices to share my knowledge with everybody I can, one, and with those who can't afford it, versus raising? I have a very firm opinion of this, Carl, so I'll give it to you after I hear what you say. But that's the essence of it. You know, I'm selling this digital clock, which I use to keep me track of time. Shouldn't I lower it to 99 cents so everybody can get it? Aren't you being a bit insensitive, Carl, and saying, no, make it $5? What do you say, Carl?
Yeah, it's an interesting, and I saw the question, and it's an interesting dilemma, because the thought is if I lower the price, I'll get more business. Not necessarily. You'll just get different business, right? And so if you think about your small business, you couldn't handle on your next drive to the shore, to the city, to work, you probably couldn't handle all the businesses you pass by or all the households you pass by on the way back and forth to work in your career if you tried. There is so much out there, and the internet has allowed connectivity in a way that we just never have seen before. And so it's more important for you to, there's always income inequality. There always has been, and there always will be.
Right.
And we can talk about the outside of our control conditions that cause that, or the choices we make. All right. And so without going down that road, understand that there'll always be different levels, and that your product or service is probably more conducive to one of those levels. Pick the one that you like. By picking one, no matter what, if you go low, you are taking out the people that are high. Right? Timberland, the shoe, became incredibly popular in urban areas, and they said, oh my gosh, we have this untapped market we didn't know about. So they lowered the price. Well, guess what happened? Those that were paying the higher price stopped buying them. So you're not going to get everybody at the same time. Front of the plane, back of the plane, front of the car, back of the car, 50-yard line, or, up in the upper tier. There's people that want certain experiences, and you're just giving them, think more like the restaurant and pick the range of pricing you want to be in for the range of people you want. Yeah. Right. So what we're saying is, I'm suggesting you raise the price so you can get the most passionate people, the most dedicated people who really want your service. And there is something about somebody paying a premium price. They tend to appreciate it more, and they tend to work harder to help you serve them even better. But if you go to a mid-price or more value pricing, you're going to attract that buyer.
Yeah.
But when you attract one buyer, you cut out another buyer.
Absolutely. And I know, Carl, from what I know of you, Carl, you're a very giving and generous person, you and your family, I'm sure you are. And I'll add to that, I found, Carl, what I've been taught by mutual friends of ours and others is that if, as a small business, I can only afford to charge higher, as it were, we'll call it the premium. But if I'm blessed to grow my business, as the person who asked, it seems like they have a great heart to do, I then can afford also to help the world, to help others,
Absolutely.
to donate, to give. Carl may have scholarships to his courses. I have scholarship and things to mine. So I think that's where that gives in, because we hear what you're saying, but I think it's a great question. Carl, why don't you leave us with one or two more tips before we close out? Remember, those who have questions, tweet out to Carl Gould. But Carl, one more tip for us today that you may have on your heart. Real quick, 30 seconds or so to leave us with.
So there's a number of questions on here about how often, how frequently, and in what manner do I communicate on a regular basis, and on what platforms with my clientele. And let me leave you with this. If you are interesting, you can communicate as much as you want on any platform you want. If you are boring, you're going to communicate less on less platforms, because no one wants to hear what you have to say. The whole point of this presentation was become top of mind and become indispensable to your clientele. And the way that you do that is you understand what is on their mind, what are the top 5 complaints, what are the value-added services, and be bold. As a small business, you can do what larger businesses can't do, which is you can make that promise and say, listen, I'm going to serve you at a level no one else will. And here's how I'm going to do it, and make your bold promise. Okay, I started my business, one guy, pickup truck, a wheelbarrow, and a shovel. And on my bold promise, in the middle of a recession, I doubled my business every single year for 7 years before I sold it. And it's all about the bold promise. You make the bold promise, you are a sustainable company, and the people who value what you do, really value what you do, will come your way. Okay, and so the more you're tapping into what's important to them, the more of you they're going to want.
Well, Carl, that was fabulous, and as expected, you inspired and you educated us. Let's hear a final word of Carl from Andy as we close out the latest episode of the Verizon Small Business Webinar Series. Andy, I turn it back to you.
And that's it for today's webinar. Our big thanks to Carl and Ramon for all of their insights and ways that businesses can create brand loyalty among their customers. Now, in the attachments tab, you will see that we are sharing the slides from today's presentation. You can check out the other webinars in this series on our Bright Talk channel page as well. And be sure to tune in for our next webinar. That's happening Tuesday, July 14th. Yancey Strickler, founder and former CEO of Kickstarter, will be joining us. We'll talk about how we can use creativity to solve just about anything and share some success stories along the way as well. So join us again. That's July 14th, and for all of our upcoming events in our Small Business Webinar Series. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.